Okay, let's see leap years with respect to ranges. That means in between ranges. So for that you need to take lower range and upper range, right? So here I'm just taking for the range as a comma b, and you can mention. So for I in range of, so that means every time we need to calculate the leap years from the lower range to upper range. For that I need to repeat my loop. So for I in range of a comma b. So if you want to include that last year also, you can mention a plus b1, a comma b plus 1. And then you can mention this, you can call this is leap year function inside this function. But whenever you want to call this, you need to, whenever you want to call this is leap year function inside this function should be written something, otherwise it will not accessible. So for that I just changing my condition like return true. Instead of print statements, I am just using return false. Okay, and after changing it, try to run the cell. Otherwise, the changes will not be applicable to this is leap year function. And I'm going to use this function if is leap of. Here we are getting the year with respect to I variable. If it is equals to true, we need to print that years. So I can use print years with respect to I variable. And I need to separate with some space instead of no line. Try to run the cell, and here I'm passing ranges from 2000 to 2010. 2000 to 2010. Now we will get all the leap years in between the 2000 to 2010. Okay, like this you can develop your logic. So instead of typing logic for leap year checking, we can simply call this is leap year function because we are already defined it. And finally it returns true if it is a leap year. So we can simply compare with respect to that condition only. If it is true, we can print that leap year. Okay, am I clear, guys? All of you respond. See, this is a very important condition. Why you are using this year is not equals to, so year should not divisible by 100. So because it is very important condition, because every century year should not be leap year. So to check that century year is divisible by 100 or it is not equals to 0, then only we will come to a conclusion that might be a leap year condition. So for checking the leap year condition, we might follow 3 conditions. So this is also important. If you omit or if you negotiate it, you might get not proper leap years. You won't get proper leap years. Okay, that's it about the tasks. Whoever having the doubts regarding the task, try to stay back in the meeting after the ending, after the 6:30. I will explain you. Okay, let's continue the today's session. Today's session is function arguments or function parameters. So function parameters is nothing but whenever you want to define a function, we can simply use def is a keyword to define that, and inside the function parenthesis we can mention the parameters like this. So here if you observe here inside this parenthesis we can mention whatever the parameters what we want. Okay, let's see, the parameters is nothing but def of function name, the syntax here, function name. Inside this you can mention your parameters. Okay, these parameters may be, and inside this you can mention the block of statements here, whatever you want. Okay, so functional parameters is signifies that the data, the input or data for the function. Don't unmute your mic unnecessarily. So try to mute yourself. Somebody has turned on your mic. Okay, so this is the way you can define your parameters, or you can call these parameters like variables or whatever. So you might hear that variables are two types. What are those? Variables are two types. What are those?
Local and global.
What is the difference between them? Because you might already know. What is the difference between global and local?
Global variable, the variables which we can use in the whole function.
Yes, whatever. So if you define a variable inside the function means those are called as a local variables. Global variables means you can define it outside the function and you can use that global variable wherever you want. Okay, have local and global variables. So global variable means basically outside the function. Local variables means you can mention these variables inside the function. Okay, so like this, you can call these parameters like variables. So whatever the variables are, whatever the data you want to pass the function, you can pass with respect to parameters only. We have different types of parameters in Python with respect to functions. Let's see whatever the parameters we have. So here I'm just mentioning it as a syntax. We already seen the syntax for the function. So let's see the syntax for parameters. So for that I'm just mentioning as a code format. So we have totally 4 types or more functional parameters. So the first one is positional arguments or positional. So you can call these parameters or arguments also. No, I can mention it here. Parameters signifies that arguments. So and also there is a small difference between parameters and arguments. Parameters is nothing but names of variables, like names of variables. Arguments is nothing but values of variables. Okay, so parameters is nothing but variable names and something, and arguments is nothing but values. Whatever the value to store that variable, you can use that values with respect to arguments. This is the difference. Parameters is nothing but a variable and argument is nothing but value of that variable. Okay, we have totally 4 types of arguments inside these functions. So the first one is positional arguments. These are all very important. Positional arguments. And the second one is keyword arguments. And the third one is default arguments. And the fourth one is variable length arguments. Variable length arguments. And the fifth one is keyword length arguments. Keyword length arguments. So these are all we have. So the first one is positional arguments, and the second one is keyword arguments. Third one is default arguments. Fourth one is variable length arguments. Last one is keyword length arguments. Let's see how all these inside this functions. Okay, the first one is positional arguments. I'm going to take a simple example. With respect to that example only, I will explain all the arguments. Okay, the first one is positional arguments. Required arguments, keyword arguments, yes, required and positional or same. Here, let's see. So for that, I'm just taking one. So one function definition. So def of. Let's take function definition as position. Position, and there you can mention any kind of parameters. So inside the parenthesis, you can mention any kind of parameters. I'm just mentioning two parameters, three parameters, whatever you wish. I'm just taking name, age, and marks. Let's take like this. And finally, I need to print all those. Instead of inside this function, I'm just printing every parameter. So print age, print marks. Okay, so and finally I'm going to call my function position of. There you can mention the data with respect to that variables. So we have totally three variables. Those are name, age, and marks. So you can mention that variable data, or you can pass the arguments with respect to that parameters. So here you can mention the name. So the name should be like strings. I'm just mentioning name as EPSSDC, and the age is something, any kind of integer. So here I'm just mentioning the age as 27, and then marks, you can mention the marks whatever you want. So I'm just mentioning 75. So with respect to the so after run it will print the data whatever we pass with respect to position. So how the interpreter will works means, it will comes to this position, it will comes to fifth line, and it will checks with the position. So it will simply consider it is in a function, and it will checks with the function definition. So here is the function definition, and it will execute the entire thing. And you need to focus on here the arguments. So here the argument APSSDC is suitable with respect to the parameter name as name only, because it will depends on position. So whatever we passed here, so now if you see position dot age. So if you want to access individual data inside that function, you can access it like function name dot age. If I mention it, it will raises an error because we are not defining any kind of attributes. So we cannot access it. But you need to observe this APSSDC signifies that name variable. It will signifies the name variable of name, and 27 is related to age. Okay. So and also marks is similar to with respect to the position is 75. So this function is basically depends on position. So with respect to that position only, it will assign the data. Okay, it will assign or it will store the data. Okay, so if I change here is 27 as my data, and if I make it as anything like tripler, if I mention as tripler, so those are also taken. With respect to the position, the arguments will be taken. Like this, the positional arguments will be taken. Okay. Now let's see the second one. The second arguments is keyword arguments. Okay, I can make a comment here. Can follows position or order. Whatever we are passed the whatever we passed in the order, with that order only it will takes the arguments. So the second one is keyword arguments. So what we are doing means we are just defining one function, and inside this I'm passing a 3 variables. Okay, those are name, age, and marks. So these can be called as parameters. So for these parameters, we are passing the values for this parameter while calling the function. So here if I pass name as 27, with respect to that position only, it can store the argument data inside the parameter. Okay, basically it is a positional arguments. So if I miss so if I don't initialize the third parameter data, now you can observe it raises an error like position 1 missing 1 required positional arguments. Okay, because it depends upon the position. So while defining the function we are taking 3 parameters, but while passing the data to the parameters we are initializing only 2 variables data, that is 27 comma triple R. 25 signifies name data, and this triple R will signify the age variable, age parameter. But so the marks will not getting the data while calling it. That's why it will tells you it is a kind of positional error. Okay, so it will require, the marks will require 1 position, so try to pass that also. Like this you can observe a kind of arguments with respect to position. Okay, so now I'm passing the data, like somebody asked me to pass India. Okay, I will pass it. Now you can see the data should be like this. So here the thing is, you need to understand the data should be followed order, or it will follows the position. So if you miss anything with respect to the parameter size or length, you will get error like positional arguments error. See, it's not about the data type, it's about the position. You need to understand, that is the thing. So whatever you pass that with respect to that, so you can mention, so if I pass x equals to 12, that is also support. If I pass x equals to some random string instead of a meaningful string, that is also support, right? So like that you need to understand here is, you need just observe the position. That means you can define the parameters, you can pass the arguments with respect to length of the parameters. Otherwise you will get a positional argument error. So name should, when you see this name, you might think that can support only string, but that's not a matter. The name is a kind of variable. It can support any data type, either string, float, and integer. The thing is, you need to focus on the position of the data while calling the function. Okay, let's see the keyword arguments. So the keyword arguments means it can follows a key and corresponding value. Let's make it as, it can follow a key with respect to value, or key and values. Yes, convert this cell into markdown. Now let's see, here also I am just taking same data, same function. So now while calling the function, I need to assign the variable with respect to value. So these variables can be called as keys here. Let's see how it is. So let's take some other name like position 1. Try to change the function name, because we are already taken the position as the same function name in the previous, so that it will raises an error. So try to change the function name like keyword. Let's take keyword arguments. So let's change the function name, and here you can access it, keyword arg. And inside this you can mention the name as a key with respect to value. Now I'm mentioning the name as Sonu, and age 67 and marks 89. Just those are all not fixed, it is a user defined data. Now you can see those are all printed. Whatever we pass with respect to key, it will print it. And if I miss anything, it will raise an error like keyword argument error. Let's see that also. Now you can observe it will raise an error, keyword missing one required positional arguments, that is marks. So whatever the parameter we can pass, that every parameter can consider as a keyword, and it will ask you to enter a key along with the value, like keyword error, keyword argument missing error. Okay, like this you can pass the values. While calling the function, you can mention variables with corresponding values, that is the keyword arguments. Okay, while calling the function, we can assign the argument value with respect to parameter name, like name equals to and age equals to and then marks equals to. If you miss anything, it will raise in a keyword missing required positional argument, like that. Can you understand this? Respond me in the chat box, all of you. While seeing also, you will get the
Ma'am, what is the
difference, right?
difference, ma'am?
So in the positional arguments, we are not passing any variable name here, like name equals to something or age equals to. So with respect to data, it will automatically assign the values. With respect to data, it will automatically takes the variable data. So here
Okay,
it
ma'am.
will
Then here,
defaultly pass the position. Here we need to pass the key. With respect to the parameter or key, it will assign the value.
what's if you give the first age, ma'am?
That's also no problem. We can change it.
First,
Like, see, if the first position argument, the first one is age and then marks, and if I pass name equals to, you can take some any random text. That is also fine. So
in
you
the
need to
first case,
think
it is not possible, ma'am. In the
in the first
positional,
case.
it is
In
not
the first case,
different,
it
right?
is not possible because we are not mentioning
Yes,
any
ma'am.
specific value, because it is depends upon the position. So
Okay,
you
okay,
can
ma'am.
pass anything with respect to that position only, it will allocate the variable data. So here you can specify with respect to variable. That is the difference. There it can follows the position. Here it can follows the variable or keys, because it is a keyword arguments. That is the difference. Now let's see the next arguments, that is default arguments. That means sometimes we need to specify a function or initialize a function with some default data. Let's see how it is. So default arguments means it have default data. Having default argument. So I'm already tell you arguments is nothing but data. Parameters is nothing but variables. Convert this cell into markdown. Now let's take that same function only. And try to change the function name. The function name is default arguments. Default arguments. And now, so here I have 3 variables like name, age, marks, and I need to specify a default value for the marks, like 75. I need to specify a default value for the marks, and while calling the function like default arc, and you can mention the values, like whatever you want. So here I'm mentioning values like positional arguments. Like you can mention whatever the data, like AP is easy, I can mention here, and the age is like 28. Now you can run it. So here DEFAULTD, there is a spelling mistake in the function calling. Now you can see we are not assigning a kind of values for the marks, but when you run this, you will get the marks data also, because we are defaultly allocate some data to this marks parameter while defining the function. If you want to change it, you can change it. So while calling the function, if you want to change the default value, you can change it. So if I pass 45, it will take the passing value only. Instead of default value, it will take the passing 45 data. You can see. See, if you don't mention anything, it will defaultly takes that default value. So let's see this default argument. If I pass default argument data as 20, so you see, into 34, and then you can mention the data like 67. It will returns the data like this. Because so for if you want to get that string also, you can mention your print statement like double quotes. Then it will get the result along with the print statement like name colon age colon marks colon. So now you can observe while calling this function default argument, I can pass that marks value as 67. That means whatever the passing value while calling the function, that will takes. But if you won't passing anything, means it will takes defaultly the default value while defining the function. That is the purpose of default functions, default arguments. Had you clear about this? Okay, next see the variable length arguments. Okay, variable length arguments means sometimes we might not know how many number of data we have to pass the function. Sometimes we don't know the exact number of data that can initialize with the function. So that you can use variable length arguments with respect to that star mark. So variable length arguments means you can define arguments with number of, you don't know the exact number of length of variable data. So in that case, you can pass a star mark. You can place a star mark along with the variable name or parameter along with the parameter, so that it will takes whatever the values you have passed. Because so every time we might not know the fixed number of variables, it can be changed. So whenever you want to pass more number of data, instead of knowing it, you can simply pass it like variable length arguments. Okay, you can pass number of data. That exactly not known by you. Okay, in that cases you can use this variable length argument, so that you can initialize the data with respect to function name. So how can you pass it? Means with the help of star mark and then parameter. In that single parameter, you can pass the number of variable data. You can pass any number of data what you want in the function. Let's see how can you define it. For this, I'm just taking the same function. You can take any functions, but instead of defining it, I'm just using the function we are already defined. Like I'm going to change this function name like variable length. Variable underscore length underscore arguments. Okay, this is my function, and inside this I know only one parameter, that is name, and I know exactly the name parameter data, but I don't know the rest of data. So I can simply use star mark, and I can take one random variable to store that data, that unknown data. So here I'm just taking that unknown data as okay, let's see. I don't know the exact number of variables, so I can use simply a star, and then I can use x here, or let's say name. Okay, and finally I'm going to print this name, and I don't know the rest of variables data like A's and marks, so that I can use, instead of name also, let's take the new variable like X, because I don't know the exact number of length of data I need to pass to this function. That means I don't know the number of variables to pass this function. So I can simply use a variable length argument with the help of star mark on the variable, or star mark with respect to parameter, and simply I just need to print this data like X, and finally I'm going to call this function. So like variable length arguments. So if you want to get the functions, after running the function definition, try to pass the first letter of the function and press shift to tab or tab from your keyboard. Then it will automatically display it, and try to use it, whatever the function you want. And here you can pass the data, any number of data. Like here I just passed like unknown data. So I have a random data like which I don't know exactly the count. So I can use uh, a count of data like this, and it will finally returns a tuple of data, because we have one or more arguments. So it can access a one or more arguments with respect to this variable length arguments, and finally it returns tuple of data. It returns tuple of arguments. Now you can see it will print that tuple of data. So how it going to be written means, inside this variable length arguments, we are taking one star mark. This star mark will define you that unknown length of variables. Unknown length of data. So this signifies that we don't know exactly the number of data that we can pass to that function. So in that case, you can simply place star mark on the parameter before the parameter, and you can define the data whatever you want, and finally I'm going to print that inside the function. So when I call it, it will return that entire data whatever we pass to this function, because we are printing it inside the function. Okay, like this you can pass the unknown length of data also with the functions.
మ్యామ్ ఇది అర్థం కాలేదు మ్యామ్, ఒకసారి తెలుగులో క్లియర్గా చెప్తారా మ్యామ్?
ఓకే, సో మీకు సమ్ టైమ్స్ ఏమవుతుంది అంటే, మనకు ఎగ్జాక్ట్లీ వన్ వేరియబుల్ డేటానే ఉంది, టూ వేరియబుల్స్ డేటానే ఉంది అని చెప్పలేం. సో దట్ మీన్స్ ద యూజర్ షుడ్ ఆల్సో డోంట్ నో హౌ మెనీ లెంత్ ఆఫ్ డేటా దట్ యూ వాంట్ టు పాస్ టు ద ఫంక్షన్. సో యూజర్ కే తెలీదు ఇన్ని వేరియబుల్స్ నాకు యూజ్ అవుతాయి, సో అవన్నీ నేను పాస్ చేయాలి అని. సో అలాంటి టైంలో మీరు సింపుల్ గా ఇలా స్టార్ మార్క్ ప్లేస్ చేసుకోవచ్చు. ఈ స్టార్ మార్క్ ఏంటి అంటే, ఇట్ విల్ సిగ్నిఫైస్ ద సింటాక్స్ లైక్ వేరియబుల్ లెంత్ ఆర్గ్యుమెంట్స్. దట్ మీన్స్ with respect to that one variable, you can store the multiple data like this. So inside this X also we have 1 and 4, 6, 7 up to the length of data. So మీరు ఎన్ని length of data పాస్ చేసినా అది with respect to one variable స్టోర్ చేస్తుంది. సో ఇక్కడ మీరు ఫోకస్ చేయాల్సింది ఏంటంటే, మీకు ఎగ్జాక్ట్ గా ఎన్ని లెంత్ ఆఫ్ డేటా ఉంది, ఎన్ని డేటా ఉంది మీకు పాస్ చేయడానికి తెలియనప్పుడు, యూ క్యాన్ యూజ్ దిస్ వేరియబుల్ లెంత్ ఆర్గ్యుమెంట్స్. ఓకే, am I clear now?
మ్యామ్ స్టార్ అంటే పాయింటర్ కదా మ్యామ్ ఇక్కడ?
No, we don't have pointers in Python. This star will defines you unknown length of data. It can store any length of data, not up to the mark. That's why we can place this star before the parameter.
ఓకే
మ్యామ్ ఏ డేటా టైప్ అన్న యూజ్ చేసుకోవచ్చా మ్యామ్?
మ్యామ్ ఇంకోసారి
Yes,
చెప్పండి మ్యామ్.
okay, you can pass any number of any type of data also. See, I'm just changing the data type also here. See, it will support any length of data, like a string, integer, bool. You can support any other formats of data also. So this is nothing but it can take, sometimes you might not know the length of data that you have. So in that cases, instead of find out in the length, you can simply pass it with respect to star mark. This star mark will defines you that unknown length of data. So you can simply pass it with star mark, so that it will takes to that function and you can use it like this. And with respect to X only, I'm passing this all 1, 4, 6 and also APSDs. That means it will takes any type of any length of data, and you can use it inside the function.
And the star denotes the length, right, ma'am?
ఇట్స్ నాట్ డినోట్ ద లెంత్, అన్నౌన్ లెంత్. సో మనకు లెంత్ తెలిసి ఉంటే ఆటోమేటిక్ గా పెట్టేస్తాం కదా ఏబి అని. ఏ అంటే
మరి
ఈ వేరియబుల్ ఉంది, బి అంటే ఈ వేరియబుల్ ఉంది. అవేంటో మనకు తెలియనప్పుడు ఈ వేరియబుల్ లెంత్ ఆర్గ్యుమెంట్స్ యూజ్ చేస్తారు.
అంటే ఇప్పుడు ఇక్కడ స్టార్ ఎందుకు యూజ్ చేసినట్టు మ్యామ్, నాకు అర్థం కాలే.
మీకు ఇక్కడ స్టార్ తీసేస్తే మీకు అర్థం. సో ఇఫ్ ఐ ప్లేస్ స్టార్ అండ్ ఇఫ్ ఐ రన్ దిస్ యూ విల్ గెట్ ఎర్రర్ లైక్ ఇది ఒక పొజిషనల్ ఆర్గ్యుమెంట్ తీసుకుంటుంది కానీ మీరు 6 ఇచ్చారు అని చెప్తుంది. అవునా, నేను 6 ఇచ్చాను, ఏంటి 1 4 6 7 8. సో టోటల్ వీ హ్యావ్ 6 లెంత్ ఆఫ్ డేటా. బట్ ఇఫ్ ఐ సో నేను ఇక్కడ డిఫైన్ చేసింది ఎక్స్ లో
అంటే
ఒకటి.
ఎన్ని
సో ఒక
వేరియబుల్స్ అయినా
వేరియబుల్
యూజ్
ఒక డేటా, ఒక వేరియబుల్ లో ఒక
వేరియబుల్.
డేటానే తీసుకుంటుంది. But sometimes if you want to pass more data to the single variable, so you can use a star. With respect to that star only, you can store any length of data to that single variable.
ఓకే మ్యామ్.
డైనమికల్ ఇన్పుట్ కూడా తీసుకోవచ్చండి. మీరు ట్రై చేయండి, రాకపోతే మళ్ళీ చూద్దాం మనం ఎండింగ్ లో. ఓకే, okay, let's see. The next one is the last one, I think so. The last one is keyword length arguments. The last argument is keyword length arguments. So for this I am defining a function like def, and I can make it as function name as keyword underscore length underscore arguments. Yes, Lokesh.
మ్యామ్ నాకు మీరు టైప్ చేసిన కోడ్ చేస్తే అది ఇన్ఫినిట్ లూప్కి వెళ్తాను మ్యామ్. అది
ఇన్ఫినిట్ లూప్ ఇది వేరియబుల్ లెంత్ ఆర్గ్యుమెంట్స్ తా.
ఎస్ మ్యామ్.
అలా వెళ్ళకూడదు,
ఇన్ఫినిట్ లూప్కి వెళ్ళింది మ్యామ్. అది
మీరు డైనమికల్ ఇన్పుట్ తీసుకున్నారా?
లేదు మ్యామ్, మీరు యాజ్ యూజువల్ ఎట్ ఇచ్చారు అట్టే తీసుకున్నాను.
ఒకసారి రీస్టార్ట్ చేసి మళ్ళీ రన్ చేసి చూడండి, సేమ్ అదే ప్రాబ్లం ఉంటే చెప్పండి.
ఓకే.
Okay, so when it comes to keyword length arguments, so that means it is similar to keyword arguments. So in the keyword arguments we have keys and values, right? So in the keyword arguments we have keys and values. So sometimes you should not know how many keys and how many values. So sometimes you should not exactly know the number of variables and corresponding data. In that case you can use keyword arguments with respect to by passing 2 stars. Okay, so it is similar to like variable length arguments. Inside this we should pass any number of length of data to the single variable, but inside the keyword length arguments you can pass any number of keywords along with the data with unknown length. So for this you need to follow a syntax like double star and then parameter, double star and then parameter. This is a syntax. So with you can pass any number of keywords and you can pass any number of values. Okay, so keyword length arguments means it can sometimes you should know the number of keywords corresponding length also. In that cases you can simply pass double star with respect to parameter, and then you can define your keys and parameters inside the function or else function calling, inside the function calling also. Let's see how to define it and try to convert this into markup. Okay, so inside this I don't know the number of keys and values, because sometimes we might get a problem like this. So in the previous we are applying for the name, we are taking one name, for the age we are taking one age, and for the marks we are applying one marks. But sometimes we should know the exact number of variables and exact number of data with respect to that variables. So in that case you can use keyword length arguments with respect to by passing double star along with the parameter. Now let's see if I pass double star and then parameter like z, let's take ess. Okay, let's take x, let's take n. These are all user defined. So you can take any variable. For better explanation, I'm just taking n only. If I take x also, you might get confused because we are already using that x in variable length arguments. Okay, so finally I'm going to print this n. And now you can see I'm going to run this cell and I'm going to call this function. Like I'm just passing ke and type keyword. So we are getting keyword. So if I pass shift tab, keyword, then again tab underscore and tab keyword length, it's not displaying. Why? I'm going to run this cell again. Keyword underscore length underscore arguments. And then you can mention whatever the keys with respect to values inside the single parameter. And here I mention it is a small k, capital K. Now you can see, yeah, it is a capital K. And inside the single parameter, you can pass number of keys and values. Okay, so that is the purpose of keyword argument, because when you pass double star means it will simply understand that it can support keys and keys and values. And when you mention single star means it can support only values. With respect to single variable, it can support different values. Now let's see, here it will asking you. So if you don't know about the syntaxes, why after typing the method, or it is not inbuilt method, so it's not give you any kind of description. Let's see, here you can pass the number of keys and values that you want. I'm just passing name as my key, and you can mention the data with respect to that key, and you can pass any other name. College, SVC, location, Vijayawada. So these are all my keys and values. And if you see, this name is my key, and with respect to that value is APSSDC, and college is my key with respect to that value is SVCA, and LOC is location. It is my key, and with respect to that value is Vijayawada. And when I run this, it will display that entire thing in a format of dictionary. Because up to now we are not covered this dictionary topic, but whenever you use double star with respect to parameter, it will return result in the format of dictionary. So dictionary might have key and value. It's separated by columns like this, key and values. The syntax for the dictionary is keys and values. When you define a keyword length arguments with double star passing along with the parameter, it will take entire key and values like with the format of dictionary.
Ma'am?
Yes, Lokesh.
మ్యామ్ ఇక్కడ కీబోర్డ్ లో ఒకే నేమ్ తోనే చాలా నేమ్స్ ఇవ్వచ్చా మ్యామ్? అంటే మల్టిపుల్ డేటాస్ మ్యామ్. ప్రీవియస్ దాంతో వేరియబుల్ లెంత్ ఆర్గ్యుమెంట్ చెప్పారు కదా మ్యామ్.
Yes, you can pass it, but up to now we are not covered the dictionary syntaxes, right?
Yes,
so if
ma'am.
I pass up to now we are not covered the list also. If you want to pass is number of data with single syntax, you should know how to pass that data like list and tuple.
Yes, ma'am. అంటే వేరియబుల్ లెంత్ ఆర్గ్యుమెంట్స్ లో మీరు ఒకే వేరియబుల్ యూస్ చేసుకునేసి మల్టిపుల్ డేటా స్టోర్ చేశారు కదా మ్యామ్. ఇప్పుడు నేమ్ అనే కీవర్డ్ తో యూస్ చేసుకునేసి మల్టిపుల్ డేటా స్టోర్ చేయొచ్చు అని అడుగుతున్నాను నేను.
స్టోర్ చేయొచ్చు, బట్ ఇప్పటి వరకు మనం లిస్ట్ టపుల్ ఎలా చేయాలో చెప్పలేదు కదా, అందుకే అది మీకు చెప్పినా అర్థం కాదు. ఇప్పుడు సింటాక్స్ ఎలా, సో చూడండి చెప్తాను. See, it will take name along with this name APSSDC along with this AP. because this syntax, so the square bracket syntax is suitable for list. So if you want to assign a different number of names with single key, you can use the list syntax. Up to now we are not covered this list syntax, that's why I'm
పైన
not
దాంట్లో
telling you in that
చెప్పండి.
format.
పైన దాంట్లో ఐ మీన్ వేరియబుల్ లెంత్ కి ఆర్గ్యుమెంట్స్ లో మ్యామ్ ఒకే ఒక ఆర్గ్యుమెంట్ ఇచ్చేసి చాలా డేటా స్టోర్ చేసుకున్నారు కదా మ్యామ్, అప్పుడు దీంతో స్టోర్
అవును.
చేసుకోలేదు అంటే ఒక కీవర్డ్ కి ఒక
మీరు-
వాల్యూనే స్టోర్ అవుతుందా మ్యామ్ ఫంక్షన్స్ లో వచ్చే
ఇక్కడ సింటాక్స్ మీరు ఏమంటున్నారు, ఇప్పుడు ఈ కీవర్డ్ లెంత్ ఆర్గ్యుమెంట్ లో వేరియబుల్ లెంత్ ఆర్గ్యుమెంట్ ని ఎలా చేయాలో చెప్పండి అని అంటున్నారు, అంతేనా?
ఎస్ మ్యామ్.
లైక్ నేమ్ అనే దానికి వేరియబుల్ లెంత్ ఆర్గ్యుమెంట్ యూజ్ చేసి చెప్పండి అంటున్నారు.
లే మ్యామ్, అంటే వేరియబుల్ లెంత్ ఆర్గ్యుమెంట్ లో మీరు ఒకే కీవర్డ్ యూస్ చేసుకునేసి మల్టిపుల్ డేటా యూస్ చేసుకున్నారు కదా మ్యామ్, ఏ ఒక్క అడిషనల్ స్క్వేర్ బ్రాకెట్స్ అంతా ఏది యూస్ చేయకుండా మల్టిపుల్ డేటా స్టోర్ చేశారు కదా మ్యామ్.
అవును.
కానీ దీంతో వచ్చే కొద్దికి ఎక్స్టర్నల్ గా మీరు బ్రాకెట్స్ యూస్ చేశారు మ్యామ్, అలా యూస్ చేయకుండా అలానే మల్టిపుల్ డేటాని స్టోర్ చేయొచ్చు అని అడుగుతాను.
యా అలా చెయ్యొచ్చు, అదే చెప్తున్నాను. ఇప్పుడు మీకు నేమ్ ప్లేస్ లో సింగిల్ నేమ్ కి డబుల్ డేటా ఏదైనా నెంబర్ ఆఫ్ డేటాని అసైన్ చేయాలంటే ఆ వేరియబుల్ లెంత్ ఆర్గ్యుమెంట్స్ ని యూజ్ చేయాలి. సో ఇక్కడ కీవర్డ్ లెంత్ ఆర్గ్యుమెంట్స్ లో అది సపోర్ట్ చేస్తుందో నాకు తెలీదు ఎగ్జాక్ట్లీ, లెట్స్ సీ. సో నాకు ఇప్పుడు నేమ్ అనే దానికి కీవర్డ్ లెంత్ కావాలి కాబట్టి నేను స్టార్ నేమ్ అని ఇచ్చాను. సో నేను ఫైనల్ గా ప్రింట్ నేమ్ అని ఇచ్చాను. సో దాన్ని కూడా ప్రింట్ చేస్తున్నాను. సో నేమ్ కి ఇక్కడ నేను 2 నేమ్స్ ఇచ్చాను. సో లైక్ ఇలా కాకుండా సో స్క్వేర్ బ్రాకెట్స్ లేకుండా డైరెక్ట్ గా పాస్ చేస్తున్నాను. లెట్స్ సీ, ఐఎమ్ నాట్ షూర్ ఇది వర్క్ అవుతుందో లేదో. And I'm passing 1 2 3 also. So I'm going to run this. See, when you define it, it will raise an error, invalid syntax, because it will not support the syntax along with the two stars along with the single star. That means when you want to define a function with keyword arguments, you can use the keyword arguments only. You cannot use the variable length arguments.
ఓకే
because it's not
అంటే
supports.
బెనిఫిట్ మ్యామ్ అంటే ఇప్పుడు వేరియబుల్ అంటే వేరియబుల్ లెంత్ మిగతా దానికంతా అంటే బెనిఫిట్ అర్థమైంది మ్యామ్, కీవర్డ్ ద్వారా డేటాని స్టోర్ చేసుకోవచ్చు అలాంటిది అర్థమైంది మ్యామ్. ఇప్పుడు దీని వల్ల బెనిఫిట్ ఏది, కీవర్డ్ లెంత్ ఆర్గ్యుమెంట్స్ వల్ల బెనిఫిట్ ఏది మ్యామ్?
Keyword length arguments is nothing but it will stores you the entire result like keys and values. Sometimes we should store the data like keys and pairs, like name along with the name, age along with the age, marks along with the subject weight, M1 along with the M1 marks, M2 along with the M2 marks. So in that cases you can use this keyword length arguments. So that is the use case. And also if you see this JSON format, like in any kind of cloud platforms, they can use a JSON formats only. In that case, the data should be like this only, keys and values along with the square brackets, keys along with the values. సో ఇలా మీకు వేరియబుల్ లెంత్ ఆర్గ్యుమెంట్ కాకుండా యూజ్ చేయాలి అంటే, మీకు సింగిల్ నేమ్ కి డిఫరెంట్ డేటా సపోర్ట్ చేయాలంటే మీరు ఇలా స్క్వేర్ లాగే పాస్ చేయాలి, లైక్ స్క్వేర్ బ్రాకెట్ పాస్ చేసి చేయాలి. ఎందుకంటే అది రెండింటిని ఇంపోర్ట్ చేయడం ఒకే ఫంక్షన్ లో అవ్వట్లేదు కాబట్టి. మీకు కంపల్సరీ కావాలి అంటే, ఆ యూజ్ కేస్ కావాలి కంపల్సరీ అంటే సేమ్ ఇక్కడ స్క్వేర్ బ్రాకెట్ పాస్ చేసి సింగిల్ నేమ్ కి డిఫరెంట్ వాల్యూస్ పాస్ చేయొచ్చు. ఇక్కడ 2 more వాల్యూస్ అయిపోయినాయి కాబట్టి ఎర్రర్ వస్తుంది. సో ఇదంతా డేటా నేమ్ లోకి వెళ్ళిపోవాలంటే యూ కెన్ ప్లేస్ ద స్క్వేర్ బ్రాకెట్ ఫర్ దట్ డేటా. అండ్ నేమ్ డిఫైన్ చేయలేదు కాబట్టి ఎర్రర్ వస్తుంది. ఐ విల్ గెట్. That's it about the functional arguments. So what else we have? That's it. We don't have anything else to tell you. So up to now is it clear, or do you have any doubts? Try to unmute yourself and try to ask with me, talk with me, then I will clarify your doubts. And thank you one and all. And by tomorrow onwards we will see the strings and the rest of data structures in Python, like list and tuple and dictionary sets. So it is very important, like the data structures in Python. So try to follow the session carefully. And by tomorrow onwards, we will start with the strings. And let's see the different data structures in Python. Okay, thank you one and all. Thank you once again. And before that, yeah, I need to explain one more thing. Please stay back. So the next one is function recursion. It is very important how to call the function inside the function. Function recursion means call the function. It takes only 2 to 3 minutes. Call the function inside the function. That means we can call the function definition inside the function definition only. That is called function recursion, and it is very important in any kind of programming languages. Let's see how it is work. So for that, I'm just defining one function like def, and function name is fun, and inside this I'm just defining one variable, that is a. Okay, and I'm going to check that if a is greater than 1. Okay, if a is greater than 1, that is my condition. And if it is greater than 1, I need to do a operation like I need to add a data to that my variable. Okay, so that is like so if a is greater than 1, and I'm going to check that I need to store a result with variable of r, and I'm adding this a result with respect to the function only. So the function of a, the function of, or else I need to subtract the result from function of a, and else if it is else I need to print result as 0, and finally I just want to return the result whatever it is, if it is in the true state or else state. Okay, what we are doing here is we are going to take one function with a variable of a, and I'm going to check that is the a value is greater than 1. If it is greater than 1, I need to add a data with respect to a variable, and it will call again this a of it will call the function inside the function, and finally it store the result r. And if it is not true with respect to this function, it will simply go to else block and print the result as 0, and finally I'm return the result as r, and I'm going to run this cell, and I will call my function. And here you can take any kind of number. If I take 2, so function of 2 means it will come to this point, it will checks with assigning a value as 2, and it will checking that 2 is greater than 1. So 2 is greater than 1, the condition is true, and now it will come to this point and execute like 2 plus the function name of 2 plus function name of 2 minus 1. So again it will execute like 2 plus function of 2 minus 1 becomes 1. Again the function name is, it will come to like 2 plus function name fun1 result what. So here better to take a greater than 0. So fun of 0. So 0. So here we are getting 1 is greater than 0. So it will returns what it returns. Let's see the result once. If I take fun2 means 2 plus 1. Every time it will store the result in the r variable. So for the first iteration, so for the first I condition a equals to 2, 2 greater than 1, it will checks with the condition. So 2 plus fun of 2 minus 1. So the result is 2 plus fun of 1, and the result is 3. So 2 plus 1, the result is 3. If I pass 0 or minus 1, if you pass any negative numbers, why it's converting into markdown syntax. So if I pass any kind of negative number like minus 1, it will simply returns the result as 0. So like this, you can call the function inside the function definition only, because this is a function definition with the name of fun of a, and we can call this function inside the function definition only. So it will it will execute recursively until the condition true. Okay. So like this, you can call this any kind of recursion functions. So recursion means you can call the function definition inside the function only. Definition inside the function definition. With the use of this, you can do one problem like factorial of a number. Write a program. I will give you a task. Write a program to find out a factorial of a given number. Factorial of a given number. And write a program. The second task is write a program to count the factors of a given number. Count the factors of a given number. And the next task is write a program to check the given number is perfect or not. Okay, you need to do all these problems. So I will explain you the logics of this also, because you might already know, but let's see. The factorial of a problem, factorial of a given number. So you might know the factorial of a given number. If you take the number of 5, so the factorial of a given number is you need to repeat the loop from 1 to up to the number, so that you will get the factorial of a given number by multiplying the given number up to the number. 5 into 4 into 3 into 2 into 1. That means you need to repeat the loop from 1 to up to the number, and you need to multiply the given number up to the given number. Okay, like this you will get the factorial of a given number, and you can do this factorial number like a normal way, like this, and you can do this factorial of a given number by creating a function. Create a function to do this factorial of a number. Like you can call the function inside the function, like function recursion. Try to do this by two formats, like this is a normal way, and you can create a function to calculate the factorial of a number, and you can call this function definition inside the function definition like this, like function recursion. Okay, try to do that. This is the first problem, and the second problem is you need to find out the factors of the given number. So the factors of the given number means you should know the number should be divisible by up to the number. And let's take one example. Like if I have 6, okay, if I have 6, you need to find out the factors of the number up to the given number. So you need to repeat the loop from up to 1 to 6, and in between 1 to 6, what are the factors for the 6? What are the factors for the 6 in between 1 to 6? The factors may be 1, 2, and 3 only. Okay, so when you want to find a sum of these, sum equals to 1 plus 2 plus 3. That is the result you have. Okay, like this you need to do a count of the factors of a given number. That may be 6, but don't generate a logic to factors count for the 6 only. Take a number as a dynamical, because I am telling you it is a given number. Okay, so you can repeat the loop from 1 to up to the number and find the factors, and try to count the factors, and try to add a factors, and try to return that factors count. That is the one thing. And the next one is find the number is a perfect or not. Like the number, how can you check that given number is a perfect or not means factors of the given number should be equal to the number. Okay, factors of the given number should be equal to the number. Okay, so you can take this is an example like 6. The factors of the 6 is we have 1 2 3. The factors of the 6 is 1 2 3. When you do a addition of it, you can get 1 plus 2 plus 3. 2 plus 3 is equal to 6. That is, the number should be is equal to the factors of the given number. Okay, the number should be is equal to the factors sum, like 1 plus 2 plus 3. But 6 is also a factor, but you need to repeat the loop before the number. That means you should not include that number while repeating the loop. Okay, 6 should be negotiable. You can negotiate it. Okay, like this you can develop your logic. Six is 1 2 3. Okay, try to these tasks by tomorrow itself, and if you have any doubts, try to contact me in Telegram. I will explain you. Okay, by tomorrow onwards we will see the strings concept. Okay, that's it about the today's class. Thank you one and all. If you have any doubt.
Hello madam. Hello.
Thank you all.